Ryan Wong. Broken. And in my head, I'm like, wait a minute, what are you talking about?
Have I seen Ryan?
Okay.
No, he's
Please
You
don't.
know, he almost got
不要从那边走过去。Non-debaters.
He was
Please don't.
barking on like people.
Stop showing them
Martin on people.
money in front of the camera.
No, he almost got expelled like 3 times. He got expelled from school.
Yeah. I think in
Oh,
terms
I feel
of
so much better now that I did that.
No, that means
your main question.
好多钱哦。
Do we count the money as like?
Why do you have
For
so
example,
much
if
money?
Jim registered as a panelist, do I just give him pounds money? Or if he,
You look at the sheet.
I count which round he chaired, and then
No, you just give money according to the sheet.
okay.
Yeah, it's like in terms of your.
Who is that? I don't know.
But then like yeah, not much you can do. But overall, good job.
It's fine. I just doubled down, but it made it worse.
Are you gonna be sitting here? I better put my laptop in.
It's fine. We can sit there.
Okay.
I'm okay.
Next tournament.
哦，没关系，我就从旁边的比较可以照到全场。
For the judges that didn't come on the second day, can you 转让给他们 and I give you money now?
No,
Then how can I give them money?
no, you give it a shot. You find them, you ask them bank account, and you do it.
Okay.
Or ask him to do it. Hey, you had a chance to give them money. I gave you money on day one, right? It's not my hands are tied already. Dylan,
老人拿光了，我好饿。
你为什么刚不吃？
我有，刚我刚才我也是，刚才头发。
啊呀，你应该要留起来的。Dylan，我现在要按什么吗？
他现在已经开始，你放那边了。
已经开始了。So all of this chapter was in a.
Yes.
Oh my god.
怎么了？
惊死人哦。
I just realized something. Oh.
You're on tape, by the way.
I just realized. If we go to the first row, everyone's in the back of the room, so we should sit in the back.
Just tell them to move out. Yeah. Huh?
Wait, Jeff.
Dylan，那等一下结束我要怎么关？等一下结束我要怎么关？
要结束。
等一下结束我要怎么关
好，click the button. Stop share. Stop streaming.
？This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, you don't want to put it in the middle?
This is fine. I will be sitting here.
Oh.
Can observers all move to starting from the third row back? Because if you guys are sitting there, you can see each other.
No.
你那个东西在这边，然后你坐那边，你知道占多少？ 你这一支票，到处都是你的垃圾场。
I'm going to go stand next to him. Okay. Hey, 往左边，左边，往左边滑，往左边滑，往左边滑，ready， ready， 这样，要靠我。
开了吗？
啊，再一下，对，好了，有了。
好低哦。
That sounds like an awful job. It is an awful job. Hey, what?
Alright, cheers. Oh, that's you, Emily. Okay. Alright, catch.
Oh my god! Show that.
Carry on.
You need one in the middle too. No, you don't mind, you can just take the one from the oh.
Yeah.
If you guys want, honestly, this shot, you're ready. You guys want to looks like sweet lunch.
Or we can put it on like there, like next to our nose. It's like a little bit and stuff.
Sure. And what's the rest of you?
Is there any more?
Okay, hi everybody. We're gonna start the grand finals of Wake Up Debate Open 2025 on the motion, this House believes that family YouTube channels that heavily feature children have done more harm than good. On side proposition, I have no idea what your team name is.
It's right there.
Oh, sorry. What if I sing a song for 7 minutes? Woo! And on side opposition, we will mock you remastered 2025.
Drop them the same thing.
Sure.
If you guys want to, you can say a thank you at the beginning of your speech. But if you don't want to, that's also okay. Cool. 6-minute speeches, 3-minute replies, and then her TOI rule.
还是我放前面。
Oh, I'm Emily, by the way. I'll be your chair for this round, and I'll let my panelists introduce themselves.
I'm Valerie. That's Jeff.
Hi, I'm Jeff.
I'm Stacy.
I am Tim.
I'm Vera.
I'm Ryan.
Cool beans. Without further ado, I welcome Prime Minister. Here.
So my speech will start in 3, 2. On our side of the world, we protect children, their consent, and their future. So proud of the cause. So first off, I would like to start my debate by talking and defining what family channels are, what these family channels do, and the 2 arguments we have prepared for you are the impact on children and the toxic portrayal of them. So first off, let's start by defining these family channels. These family channels are blogs featuring the family and children, which their promotion takes heavily features on the children. These family channels usually center around like, oh, what these children do in a day, or like their first everything, like I don't know, like their first surgery, like their first tooth being falling out. And what happens is these family channels usually abuse their children in the process. Obviously, if you want to get clicks and if you want to make a lot of money and profit off of your children, you need to make sure only the happy moments go on camera. And how do you get 4-year-old children, 3-year-old children to be happy when they're mad? You do that by hitting them. This is what happens in a lot of these family channels. Lots of these family channels, the children are being abused by their parents. They get hit, they get screamed at. Some of them even get starved, as we can see from examples like the YouTube channel 8 Passengers. These children were locked in basements for not acting happy enough on camera. This is what happens on family channels. Now, moving on to our first argument, the impacts on children. The first thing we'll cover is there's no legal capacity for children to be able to stand up for themselves. They have no consent whether or not they want to be on camera, as the parents are rightfully their legal guardian and can control everything they want.
Those abusers would be abusing their children on either side of the house. It is only because of this televised and these family YouTube channels that we actually know about these children being locked in the basement in the first place.
Well, we think it is true that abuses happen on both sides of the house. However, we believe it's more obvious and it's going to happen more on opposition side of the house, because these channels who want to make money and make profit, they'll be more likely to abuse their children to make the children look happy in front of the camera. While on our side of the house, these abusers, less abusers would be present in our side of the house because less people would try to would try to like force their children to be happy in front of a camera that's always in their face 24/7. Now back to my point. Children have no legal capacity to stand up for themselves, and they have no consent on when their face goes on camera. They have no access to lawyers, no access to money. Everything is like their parents control everything. For example, if you were a lawyer and a 4-year-old came up to you, obviously you wouldn't take them seriously because you're just a child. They have no control whatsoever. Number 2, their vulnerability. Children obviously trust their parents because the parents are who takes care of these children. Now, to be able to become more mature and to be able to like be less naive, we obviously learn through life experiences, right? However, these children who are like 6, 7, 8, they're really vulnerable to society. They don't know what is actually happening because they don't have enough life experience to like be able to see, oh, I'm actually like being taken advantage of. My parents are abusing me. They don't know this because lots of these children are also being homeschooled, so they have no basically they don't have lots of outside contact. And if they do interact with others, it's probably children of other influencers. And surprise, surprise, they're also being abused.
So you said that children are not going to be taken seriously, but their children are one of the most cared about stakeholders because they're so vulnerable, because they're so susceptible to abuse. That's why there's, for example, YouTube's content policies on children. That's why those children are so cared about.
Yes, so children, okay, fine, that could be true, but let's be real, not every single lawyer would be able to take a 4-year-old seriously. And okay, let's say if it was true, let's say the lawyer does take the child seriously. But not many children will be able to stand up to their parents in court. To be able to face your own parent who abused you, they might not know that they're being abused in the first place. So it's really unlikely for them to be able to stand up to their parents and end the cycle of abuse. Now back to my point, children don't understand the long-term consequences of always being put on camera during their most vulnerable moments, which make them even more vulnerable. And our third layer covering our problem is adults are already being abused, right? We see this through for example, Piper Raquel, a famous influencer who's 17, she is currently being abused by her mom. We see this from a new Netflix documentary. So if an adult is already being abused, what makes you say that our children can't be abused? They're really likely to be abused and be really vulnerable. Okay, so moving on. The trauma and mental health will always haunt them. They always get unwanted attention by the media, and they'll be easily triggered in the future because all the most vulnerable moments are posted on social media for everybody to see. Moving on to our second problem, the toxic portrayal of family. So right now, lots of people watch these family channels, right? Obviously, they make a lot of money, they have a lot of views. So what happens is when children watch these family channels, they only see this perfect side of the family. They only see a happy family because, the influencers cut the bad parts out. So what will happen is they might feel unloved or unhappy because they don't feel oh, maybe my parents don't love me, So why isn't my parents buying me $10,000 toys these influencers do? Am I not loved? So what happens is really harming to their mental health. It's harming to their society. They will grow up believing that they are unloved and they are not like the servants of these influencers. And what happens is young people will also look at this toxic portrayal of family and see this happy family. And in our world, learning about family is through experiences you witness yourself. However, in opposition's world, only young people will only see family through the lens of toxic family media and toxic influencers, and they will get this fake idea that having a family is always happy. There are no struggles because influencers don't put that. Lastly, we think vulnerable and insecure parents will see this and feel terrible. So if you're insecure and you're a single mom working 3 jobs, right? But then you look at these influencers and feel oh, I'm not able to spend as much time with my children. I'm not able to afford as much. I'm not able to provide my children with such luxury. You'll obviously feel terrible, right? Because you see the unrealistic expectations set by social media. And for all the reasons above, And for all the reasons above, we are practical folks.
Let's ask this is okay now. Are you sure?
Over 7 minutes.
Also, you guys can time yourselves because I forget and I get distracted really easily. So, okay. Welcome, Ella. Okay. Hey, I just realized I think we should definitely not be doing our notes in order to make it impartial decision. 可是我觉得 we think the same anyways, it doesn't matter.
Is everyone ready? I'll start with page 3, 2.
proposition simply just comes up here and describes an abusive household as the only faulty reason, might I add, that these YouTube family channels have been way more harmful than have done here. This is completely untrue. I'm going to first start with rebuttals, then some clarifications, and I'm going to integrate the rest of my rebuttals into our arguments. First then, on rebuttals, what do they tell you? They tell you that, oh, children are unable to stand up for themselves. Yeah, we think that happens no matter what, right? But what is the difference when you actually have these family YouTube channels, right? We know that children are the most vulnerable. However, you can catch them through video if you actually are recording their lives, right? How do you think they caught that blonde lady who had like 8 children, whatever? I don't know the family channel name, but basically they caught that lady because viewers were able to see these abusive tendencies from this woman in those videos. They were able to catch that out, and through those hints, through like viewership check and balance, right? They were able to later prosecute her and make sure that she ended up in jail and stopped abusing those children, right? Also, we tell you that children are the most protected stakeholders, right? We often, in society, we place a lot of protections on these children. And so, therefore, because this is a family channel that especially focuses on children, we believe there's absolutely a ton of public scrutiny that will happen if anything goes wrong. Okay, also, they say that, oh, children aren't going to be able to go to court, they're not going to know when they're even being abused, right? Again, viewership, check and balance. Which side is actually going to be able to more easily catch this abuse? Is it a closed household where no one knows what's happening behind those doors? Or is it a family channel where things are being broadcasted? You have millions of adults who are watching this channel who are able to get these little hints that the children might not otherwise know, right? Also, they say, oh, you're only going to see happy things, too idealistic lives, and things like that, right? However, we believe that these family channels, if they're going to be big in the first place, they absolutely have incentive, and they will have achieved what it is to be relatable, right? You have to be relatable if you want to get more views on social media, which means they're going to show more than just happy fabrications. They're also maybe going to show downsides. They're going to share their struggles in the family. How else are they going to get more subscribers and more people to want to tune into their channel, right? Obviously, we think they have incentive to not only show their happy idealistic side, although we know that there is always some fabrication on social media no matter what, they're still going to have incentive to be relatable. Okay, next, they say that insecure parents will feel terrible. But actually, we want to flip that and say that these parents are actually going to feel hope when they see these family channels, but I'm going to integrate that more into our arguments. Okay, so then, onto just a bit of clarifications, right? I think that why do people even start these YouTube channels in the first place? Maybe it's just that they simply want to record life, or they want to build these family connections. These always start from good intentions. And also, I think that proposition comes up here and points out these very minor, these abusive cases are an extremely small minority in the whole, abundance of these family YouTube channels, right? But most of them are actually, parents are usually good actors. They care about their children. Most parents are not actually abusive. Most of the channels are not actually abusive, as proposition wants to falsely characterize. Okay. Also, so now I'm just going to go into arguments then. First argument is we believe that actually through these family YouTube channels, what has happened is it's actually been able to showcase and promote a lot of diversity across social media. How is this possible? When you have all these different types of family YouTube channels, right, that show all these different whatever, what it is able to do is it's able to showcase different demographics of families. For instance, you're able to see different families of different races, maybe Asian family parenting types or whatever, or white or black. You are able to see all these different types of representation there on social media. You can see different parenting types, education types. Maybe some kids are being homeschooled by their parents. They're going through unorthodox type of education. Before, when on their side, maybe parents who were going through the same thing are condemned by society for going an unorthodox route. On our side, with these family YouTube channels, these people have been validated by these YouTube channels that have been able to grow and have grown supporters, right? They're able to know that, their ways of life are actually not that bad, and they're able to, be validated, things like that. You can see different lifestyles. You can see rich and poor families. You can see all these different types of demographics being represented on social media. We think that is so important. Also, this provides hope for individuals, especially the marginalized, or even those who have been abused before. Why is this? When they see a happy family, they'll know that, a good relationship in the family is achievable. Even if they feel, and even if they know that, it's kind of sad that my family doesn't look like this, at least they know that it's possible. When someone who's grown up abused thinks that this is the only thing that they'll ever know as children, right? They see these channels and they see, actually I'm able to be a good parent. This is what good parenting looks like. We think that social media creates this comparison for these individuals, and it provides hope to know that there's actually good parenting, good relationships can exist out there, and it shows it to them in a much more relatable and intimate way rather than just seeing it in daily life. You see on social media is much more close to those individuals. Second argument then, we think that it has amplified discourse around childcare, right? Because proposition has a burden to prove that why exactly all this abuse stems from starting a family YouTube channel in the first place. But I don't think they've done that, right? But what has happened actually with these abuse cases that they've blown up, right? When it happens, it's absolutely blown up all over like the news, people talk about it, they're shocked. And what happens after social media goes like all over like super ranting about this issue? They advocate for reform, right? They make social media and YouTube platforms a much safer place for these children. They obviously condemn any other YouTube channel that they see doing the same thing, right? Because if abuse happens either way, at least when it's recorded, you're able to catch them for it. Okay, second there, on privacy. Other than being able to catch abuse, we think that it has also amplified like privacy discourse, right? There's much more like discourse around consent and filming because of these family YouTube channels, and like people obviously care about children, right? You know about all these issues way more because it's been proliferated by these family YouTube channels. And also all these issues like around consent and filming on the children, things like that, right? It might have like started from YouTube, but now the influence has spread to more than YouTube, right? And also spread all around the world, right? You see it on social media. You see it not on only YouTube as a platform, but also other forms of social media. So the impact here is that these family YouTube channels, everything that happens on them, allows people to feel relatable. It allows them to be validated. It allows them to be seen. Also, any harm that is then brought up by these family channels is shown to the world. We're able to fix it and make the world a better place. For all those reasons, so proud to oppose.
Okay, welcome Deputy Prime Minister. Stay here.
Today in my speech, I'd like to first talk about the most important stakeholders in this debate, which are the children who are heavily featured in these YouTube channels. Now we believe that these family YouTube channels have done these children more harm than good, and we are going to explain that first by rebutting their arguments, and then talking about our own impacts. First off, our opposing team has talked about how these channels can show diversity on social media and promote more discourse around certain important issues such as childcare or privacy. But then we would like to raise the question of how important is it that we need to heavily feature children in these channels? And why is it that heavily featuring children specifically is important in order to achieve these impacts? I will go on to explain why heavily featuring children is actually a really bad thing that these YouTube channels are doing. First off, I would like to say that children cannot consent. Why? Children do not have the life experience to know the certain pros and cons of certain actions that they do. They do not have the judgment that you develop as you grow up. Therefore, children, I believe, cannot consent, especially to important things such as having your face broadcast all over social media. Why is this important? Well, there's a lot of drawbacks and benefits that come with being famous. But some drawbacks of being famous include being bullied, because people online are anonymous. So anybody who is feeling really angry or anybody who has certain hateful things to say feels more empowered to be hateful because they're anonymous. This can facilitate bullying. Furthermore, in-person bullying can happen because children can find maybe a small example of them acting embarrassing or a certain moment that might not be as good for camera. They can replay that and they can use it again to bully these people. Another negative drawback of being famous is that these children are going to have to deal with the stress of being recognized in public. Sometimes people just want to enjoy a calm time out in public, go shopping or do whatever. But when they're more famous and when their faces are broadcast over social media because of these channels, it's more likely to get recognized. And the stress of being recognized and having to talk to fans and not being able to just peacefully go about your life can be really damaging. But why is this really, really bad in the context of family channels? Again, because children cannot consent. You see, most of the times it is parents who decide to put their children on camera. But even if they ask the children whether they want to be on camera or not, we still believe that asking children is kind of a farce because children do not know these nuanced benefits and drawbacks. Children should be made aware of these benefits and drawbacks before they're broadcast all over the internet. And they can only know about this when they have enough age and experience and judgment in order to know whether they want to go through with all of these drawbacks. That is why we believe that this negatively harms children, because children will not be able to consent to the negative impacts of being broadcast online. And we believe that that's why heavily featuring children is very bad. The second thing we'd like to talk about is the portrayal of families online. You see, our opponents talked about how you're able to create hope. You're able to portray an image of what a happy family looks like. But we would like to emphasize that on social media, it is very easy for people to simply edit out some of the worst moments of their relationship. Maybe they can edit out certain arguments. Maybe they can Maybe they can take examples of like their children, like maybe having crying or going through bad times, and they can try to erase it. Or if they want to seem relatable, they can try to edit out the worst details and create a more sanitized version of it in order to make it look like they're still going through strife, but make it solved way easier. There's a lot of different possibilities that these channels can take in order to promote a toxically healthy version of a family. And why is this bad? First off, it can make children and parents insecure. They see this example of what a really good family looks like. The issue is that not every family is perfect, right? People will go through arguments. They will go through certain disagreements. And yeah, they might turn ugly. But the thing is that when all you see is a very clean version of what a family looks like, or maybe a very sanitized version of what arguments or disagreements look like, then you get this insecurity where people doubt whether their own life is worse off than it really is. We believe that this can harm people's mental health, right? Because your family is supposed to be the people that support you, that come home to and get comforted by. If you feel that they can't protect you and do all this, then we believe that these families who might just be doing okay before will now feel a lot worse. They might feel that the family can't support them. Another thing I'd like to talk about is why having these YouTube channels is uniquely bad. We believe that YouTube is uniquely bad because it's very, very accessible, right? Anybody can start a channel. Anybody is able to broadcast and portray their children online. Why is this bad? We believe that this is bad because then it's very, very unregulated. You get people who are able to portray their children on camera, who are able to do all this, and YouTube has made it a lot easier for people to do all this. Essentially, our impacts are a lot more magnified in their scope, and they affect a lot more people now because it is a lot easier for these channels to start doing their thing. Furthermore, our opponents talk about the benefits such as showing diversity or showing discourse. But then we question, why is it necessary that you need to heavily feature your children who can't consent and who might get bullied for all of this? Why do you need to heavily feature them? Why not maybe start a blog? Why not just film yourself and your partner talking about your children? Do you really need to show your children in maybe vulnerable times or maybe show your intimate moments on the internet? We believe it's possible to achieve diversity and create discourse without having to put your children on camera, on internet for everybody to see. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Deputy Leader of Opposition. Here.
When implicit yet exceptionally dangerous forms of abuse are perpetrated throughout generations, condemning individuals to create a cycle of unseen abuse, we say that that is the greatest evil very proud to oppose. One quick clarification before 3 questions and then the next answer. So, what does it actually look like on platforms like YouTube? Side opposition tries to say that, it's very unregulated because it's accessible, because there are a lot of people on it, so you cannot actually regulate it. So, we tell you that the channels that have the most influence are going to be the ones with the greatest amount of subscribers. Why is it important? Because of 2 reasons. A, because the channels with a lot of subscribers are going to be heavily scrutinized by YouTube anyway, because if you have a huge amount of subscribers on YouTube wants to regulate you because they have an incentive to do so, because if these channels spread bad content on these platforms, then that just means that YouTube gets bad rap, so they have the incentive to do this. But B, we see that even if this isn't the case, child channels are scrutinized heavily anyway, because any content relating to children is considered quite sensitive, and children are already considered very vulnerable actors. That's why, for example, on YouTube, there are extra special guidelines for child content. So then, with that, moving on to the first question then, on which side gets more explicit abuse. Side opposition tries to talk about abuse and say that, children don't know that they're being manipulated, and children aren't taken seriously by lawyers. 2 responses to this. First of all, Number one, I'm sure that the people locked in 8 passengers' basement have no clue that they're being abused, right? Like, because clearly they aren't being starved, right? We think that if they're being starved, they're literally going to know that they're going to be abused. They literally can feel that they're being abused, given that this is a form of physical abuse. For instance, if they say that, oh, these parents will beat their children. If you get beat by your family, I'm pretty sure you'll look this is a pretty explicit form of abuse. I'm pretty sure you're not going to think that, oh, everything is fine. Secondly, we think that children are definitely taken seriously. These children are overwhelmingly thought about because they're such vulnerable people, because they have such potential to be abused. And this is extremely important. But then, we also say that's just not just lawyers that take them seriously. Because even if these parents never actually get prosecuted in a court by lawyers, there's still a ramification. We see that overwhelmingly, if you're pointed out for being abusive, you get cancelled by the viewers, and your fan base loses trust in them and stops watching their videos. Why is this so important? Because their livelihoods probably depend on this, right? If you run a YouTube channel, if you suddenly do not have any viewers, you suddenly do not have any money. Because this is a huge and important form of return, and it's a good consequence that stops the channel from creating abuse. But moreover, looking at your impact is extending to the rest of society, to the broader society. And their only response is, oh, this is not exclusive, you can start a blog or something. This is very exclusive because it's exactly the exposing of the abuse that happens when that actually creates this societal discourse. I don't think anyone would willingly start a blog and say like, oh, I'm abusing my children. And it's a lot harder to reveal that kind of abuse on like blogs, for example, where it's highly validated, where you just write text, compared to you're actually seeing family interactions. You can actually see maybe these children are emaciated, or these children look really uncomfortable. That is actually where you do get this attention, and it spreads to the entirety of society. This looks like, for example, concern about abuse, leading to more child abuse restriction laws being passed. Those things go later, and also things about consent, right? Maybe there's more awareness being raised about consent. There's more questions being asked, just purely because this type of content exists. There's more people thinking about this overall. But more importantly, I actually want to talk about their side of the house because they've been extremely ignorant of their comparative. What does it look like? There's 2 types of parents. Number one, parents who aren't monsters. We said that most parents aren't explicit abusers because they have blood relations to their children, right? But secondly, even if there are parents who do abuse, it's far worse on their side of the house because those parents probably have those tendencies anyway. If they're going to actively abuse their children just for like views, they're probably not very innocent parents anyway. They're probably going to do it anyway on their side of the house. The difference then is that it cannot be exposed so easily. No one will know. It happens behind closed curtains because this is so much worse for those children. But next, on question 2 on consent and bullying, I think there were 3 responses. A, yeah, there's ultimately a culture against hate comments in, for example, the YouTube chat. So overall, we see like positive comments being reinforced ultimately. And B, when you're a child, you're different to what you are when you're an adult. So you're going to be recognized differently. But even if we accept this argument in its entirety, we think that abuse, and especially implicit abuse, weighs so much more over this. And that's leads me to honestly my extension on understanding how to parent and adding on to this first question. So the problem in the status quo is that many parents in the world do not have very comprehensive information on how best to parent their child. Where does such information come from right now on proposition quo? It can ultimately come from your own experiences with your own parents. Why? Because this is very close to you, and this is basically the only thing you know better. So we notice that there's not any other alternatives. Because, for instance, if you don't have time to work, take care of your children and learn from go to parenting classes instead. The reason why this is so pernicious is that the implicit sources of abuses are popularized and normalized, and this leads to you passing that down to your children. For instance, it's not necessarily abuse to compare your children constantly and make them feel really bad about their grades, but if this becomes normalized, then parents on their side of the house are likely to do this once they grow up, and this becomes a vicious cycle that is normalized. The reason why this changes on our side of the house is we get a lot of accessible, different perspectives on parenting. Notice how, per their own words, there are a huge amount of different types of parents that are on these channels that are posting these types of content, so you're able to absorb easily so many different views on how to parent. And notice how this impact is unique to our side. These can't just say that you have other measures like blogs or parenting guides, because these are so much more real. These show true interaction, and for these reasons, we're so proud to propose.
Welcome, go with. Here.
Kids, are you ready? Okay, opponent, are you ready? Then my speech will start in 3, 2, 1. So first of all, I would like to point out that Alexander never accepted the POI that he said he would take later, and that is about act. So now let me start with rebuttals. We talked about how abuse happens on both sides of the house. Yes, but what's different is that on opposition side is that these family YouTube channels are what provides an incentive for the parents to abuse these children, to make content and profit from this. Let's say that even if they do abuse their child, like probably they hit them for like getting bad grades and stuff. But once they start this YouTube channel and they see their children getting even more and more popular, they obviously will want to profit. They'll want to force their children to do even more like exaggerated things to seem even happier. This is what provides the profit provides an incentive for the parents to go and continue on abusing their kids even more. And the problem is that by disagreeing with the motion, is that by having the channel being so successful, motivates the parents to try even harder to profit, which would probably be in the form of like abusing their kids, right? Like, let's talk about the example of Piper Rockwell. Do you really think her mom would be that abusive of Piper if their whole group and YouTube channel hadn't become so popular? Even if her mom did like verbally abuse her or things like that, then without these YouTube channels, her mom wouldn't have the incentive to push her constantly, to push her to do more things, to wear more revealing clothes, to like say like more outrageous things, to gain even more popularity. Second, we talk about the good things such as showing more diversity, having discourse around childcare, and parents feeling motivated. First, I just think that parents feeling more motivated is probably not true. Like as a human, I think that what we do first when we see a successful person is that we feel pity for ourselves, we feel insecure, we don't celebrate others, which is exactly what like it's so hard to find true friends who will celebrate your successes, right? And second, they talk about showing diversity and discourse around childcare. All of the good things that opposition side talks about can be achieved through not having channels that heavily feature children. And they also talk about how after parents are counseled through like court proceedings and things like that, no one will talk about it anymore and like people won't care. And sure, like what if we're charitable and accept that no one talks about it anymore, where there will still be rumors. But just because the parents lose money and attention doesn't mean that the trauma that the child now has is suddenly reversed and will disappear. I'll take your POI.
On your point about like why people would watch like all these things YouTube about, well, I think that's exactly right. But how are these channels supposed to gain so many subscribers if all people feel is just terrible? Like, how are these channels able to gain so many subscribers if all they do is just make people feel terrible and envious, like they'll never achieve these things?
We think that when we look at the celebrities and influencers we follow, they're like gorgeous, right? They're rich. Like, look at like Brooke Ma, for example. She's so beautiful, she's so rich, she has a perfect boyfriend. We follow those we envy, right? We follow the people that we admire, that we want ourselves to become. But this case is so detrimental for the children because it is heavily featuring children in all of these YouTube channels. So now, the most important stakeholders in this debate is the children. Children who are under the legal adult age of 18 or 20. Children who already lack a strong mentality and are so easily controlled by their parents. They're the ones that we need to protect, and I think like both sides of the house agree to this, right? And the problem with opposition is that even when they give all these positive impacts, like diversity and inspiration, can all be achieved without having to explicitly, heavily feature children. When we take opposition by their best case, which is that, okay, sure, we see like Asian families, Indian families, like black families, like we learn about how they run their families and things like that, and we talk more about like childcare. This can all be achieved by just having like parents even like hold meetings or just having like videos that will not like feature children so much. Because the problem with this is that children they're not able to give consent. Even if the parents say that they have given consent to film these videos, it's probably by the parents, right? Because I'm sure that like all of us in the room, our parents are the ones that we trust and love the most. They're the ones who take care of us every day. They're the ones who like give us a safe home for us to live in, right? So obviously, the children are so susceptible to like abuse and manipulation by the parents, and this would just lead to worse mental health and also trauma that would impact them forever. And not only will their mental health be deteriorating, but also the mean comments and peer pressure that come from like society is going to put them to do even more extreme things. And this is so much worse than the average influencer. If in this debate we were talking about a normal like adult influencer and talk about whether we should like ban influencers or not, then we would
Alexander's people would, because they can say that they are at the legal age where they're able to take responsibility and know the things that they're doing. But in this debate, we're talking about children. They're under 18. They lack the mentality and also the judgment. They don't have the experience to know that they are actually being abused. And even when they know, they don't have the capacity and ability to stand up for themselves. So judge and panel, if you want to protect vulnerable children and ensure a home with a pure childhood, please vote for government side of the house, because by supporting opposition side of the house, you're taking away the childhood and allowing children to be abused. Thank you.
I welcome all boys to conclude the substantive portion of the debate. Here.
A girl raised in a strict family environment one day comes across a family channel that posts everyday content such as cooking dinners, family trips, or funny anecdotes. It changes her perspective on families, how she'd like to be treated by her own family, and how she would want to parent her own kids in the future. People like her are exactly the reason why family YouTube channels spread positivity and raise awareness in familial relations. Okay, so first of all, we believe that it spreads diversity by making the audience understand different family dynamics and parenting styles. Okay, so often the one clash is proposition says that it will make people envy the family and make them feel bad about themselves or their family. But if a lot of people are watching family YouTube channels, why would they be watching videos that make them feel bad? Obviously, yes, you can follow people you envy, you can want to be them, but you can also take that into account for yourself and think, okay, how can I become them? How can I make a family that has this kind of safe environment that these family videos are preaching, right? And if they see it as an ideal, they have examples and information on healthy relationships that they would want to build with their children in the future, or their parents in the present. On top of that, the format of YouTube makes it seem like you're there with them, like vlogs or videos, like long format videos. It makes it seem like you're there with them, and it touches you emotionally, and that can inspire you to break cycles of abuse or criticism that you don't want to receive from your own parents right now. And it also gives an audience an opportunity to reflect on their families and whether they want to uphold their current familial values. And on top of that, this gives both parents and children a way to look at alternative ways to approach their families. Other children's experiences can teach younger children about how to handle life experiences like getting teeth pulled, getting your first period, or even cooking your own meal. And that can inspire kids to deal with hard situations that come with life and growing up. And that can teach them about healthy ways to deal with it and say, yes, these things are normal. Yes, it's okay to be scared, but look, there's an older kid out there who experienced just the same thing you did, and they were okay. And this is how they dealt with it, and this is another way you could deal with it yourself. Okay. And they also say that family YouTube channels exploit their children to make money, but we believe that abuse happens whether or not it's recorded. In cases that huge family channels abuse their kids, they often get exposed, because with such a huge audience, they get so much observation, and in fact, when everything adds up, the exposure raises awareness on abuse. Previously known abusive family channels give audiences evidence to analyze and identify signs of abuse. Like, for example, Piper Raquel or the 8 Passengers family YouTube channel. Those channels have raised awareness on how the families can exploit their kids. And that has given social media and the audiences a way to analyze and say, oh, look at these clues, that these happen in these unhealthy channels and unhealthy families, and I see that in another family, and I want to look out for them just in case that is happening too. And that has made an impact. Yes.
Do you think that having these parents getting exposed for abusing their kids is more important, or to prevent this abuse from happening in the first place?
Well, we believe that abusive parents have values and principles ingrained so deeply in them, it will come out either way. It is just social media and family YouTube channels is just another way that it can be shown, or it can incentivize them to show how they view their children. And other situations that happen in the children's lives can lead to abuse too.
it's just another way that it can pop up. So, to make the best out of the impact the fans make, yes.
If the fans are able to analyze the traumatic side in other family channels, won't the editors of these channels be able to look for videos and just edit them out even better?
Well, in some cases, some video clips that either they didn't have enough time to record or they just didn't see it, that can be very obvious to other audiences, and sometimes the editors don't catch them. And sometimes those are the only clips that they can edit, and they just use them as well. And there are other ways that they can see it. Like, for example, if the family is shown in public and the audience sees the way the family is interacting, that's also another way they could identify. Yeah. And they say that including children in videos is not necessary, but we believe that that inspires discourse about filming your children and consent. And honestly, this can, a violation of privacy and consent can also happen on other other platforms as well, on TikTok, on I don't know, even blogs. They can have photos of their children or videos of their children. This is not just a problem that is confined to YouTube family channels. Thank you.
Hi, welcome after class. Thank you.
Starting to at the end of this debate, what are all side politics' main issues? We think there are three things. A, they talk about how profit-driven parents will commit abuse. B, they talk about unrealistic ideals. And C, they talk about this idea of consent. So let's respond to that in order. What have we told you on that? First of all, A, on abuse. We told you that abusive parents who are willing to exploit their own flesh and blood are going to be sick in their mind anyway, which is throughout our bench. So these people who are these parents will probably abuse their children anyway on either side of the house. If you're going, because what do you think ultimately is the goal of most parents making money is to make a future for their children, right? Yeah. If parents are willing to sacrifice their children and beat them and starve them to such a degree, yeah, they're probably sick in their mind anyway. They're probably going to abuse their children anyway. And we said even if it's a lesser extent of abuse, even if it's not as much abuse as we would with profit limit, it still works because that, even if it's a lesser form of abuse, it still goes under the radar. It's still not seen. So we say that more abuse that is actively being seen and actively being talked about and actively being exposed with consequences is far better than maybe slightly less bad abuse that isn't caught at all on their side of the house. Okay, but let's be charitable then. What will happen even if those abusive parents were motivated by money? Is that the reason why they're still able to get exposed and there's still going to be wider societal discourse about it, at least a tangible societal impact like we told you. And the reason, responding to Bell's POI again, the reason why those abuses being exposed is more important than that not happening in social media is because abuse does not happen just in social media, like Serena told you. Abuse happens widely across society, and all of this discussion creates tangible change in the form of, for example, laws on child protection, discussions on consent, which also responds to the idea of consent. When you have all of these have all these discussions around these issues, that means that you're able to progress, and you're able to get better forms of, for example, laws dealing with consent. You're able to get better ideas of consent in other instances instead of just filming your children, right? You're able to get children consent for other things. Maybe if the children don't consent to other things that you're doing to them, that is also something that we can change on our side of the house, so our impacts extend wide beyond just YouTube. So, finally, let's do a bit of weighing then. Even if we accept all of their points, why are we still better on our side of the house? We see proof here in our extension, and Nina's first point, that we're able to stop implicit biases from happening generation to generation. We told you that these people had no other viable alternative that's as personal and as relatable and as easy to access as these YouTube videos. They talked about parenting sessions. Those are probably expensive and parents don't have that much time. So So on our side, we're able to prevent those sorts of implicit abuses which happen to so many more children than just those few instances that happen on side Washington's best world. Very, very proud to propose.
Welcome, Governor Clyde. Here, here.
In this debate so far, we have seen a major discussion on abuse and consent. Now, our opposition team has constantly talked about throughout the debate about how these family channels are able to expose abuse and bring it out to the real world. And a couple rebuttals to that. First off, like we talked about before, it is very possible for these channels or these editors to try to sanitize their content. Maybe they want to be more appealing. Maybe they want to avoid controversy. Who knows? They're able to sanitize their content, maybe edit out the worst parts, and try to portray themselves in a better light. It is this that makes abuse very hard to spot, and it makes certain bad treatment very hard to spot when it comes to these channels. We believe that that's an important flaw that they have not really responded to. In their speech, they just said that, maybe editors won't catch these clips, maybe this will go through. We believe that's not the case. Sanitization can happen very easily. But sure, maybe the editors do miss it, and maybe it exposes one example of abuse. We believe that this isn't worth it because of the other things we have mentioned. The next thing, which is consent. Again, we've argued that children do not have the ability to consent. They do not have the experience. They do not have the judgment. They are not able to consent to having their face all over the internet, which, like I talked about, has a lot of bad impacts. Now, first off, their response to these bad impacts, like bullying or being recognized in public or the stress of being a celebrity, it's just that, there's a culture of positivity on YouTube. We believe, first off, we talked about the anonymity that is able to facilitate bullying and facilitate negativity because nobody knows who it is that's being negative. This empowers people who are bullying. But second off, we argue that it only takes one or two examples of negativity or hatred or bullying in order for it to really harm you. Also, their response to this idea of consent was just, it invites discussion about consent. It makes people think of whether children can consent or not. We argue that you don't need to violate a children's consent in order to discuss it. I don't need to commit murder in order to spark a discussion on murder. I believe that consent should be respected of these children, and we don't need to sacrifice these children's consent in order to start a discussion on it. Next is the debate on the portrayal of families and how people will view these families. Now, our opposition team has argued that, they will spread positivity, they will act as a role model. But we have talked about before that it is very easy to sanitize these videos. It's easy to try to make them seem better than they are. This portrays an unrealistic idea of what families should be. We believe this is more harmful because then it makes people feel insecure about their own relationships. They feel that they can never match. Then we asked, why is it really necessary to have these heavy features these children? Now, sure, it might seem more real, it might seem more intimate, but after we talked about these ideas of consent, after we talked about these ideas of children getting bullied, and this idea of promoting toxic lifestyles, is this slight increase in realness or this slight increase in intimacy, is that really worth the violation of consent and the toxicity that it promotes? We argue that is not the case, therefore please vote for proposition 7. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both teams for the lovely round and congrats for making it this far. I believe the judges will head to a room. Yay.